This week's been really good for me, other than the sleeping. Most of you know about that. But there were so many things to be surrounded by. Especially when you go into the chocolate section of the store right now, and you have all these chocolate things. And you resist them as long as you can, and then you just break down and you decide that the store needs the money more than you, and you need the chocolate more than you need the... No, I'm kidding. I read something a few months ago, and it said, the type of day you have is the way you greet the day. So when you first wake up, before you open your eyes, before your feet hit the floor, you say to yourself, and you say to God, God, this is going to be an amazing day. Thank you for giving me another day. And away you go. You see, you decide what kind of day you want, because even if the day isn't great, it's great with God. I saw something online a few months ago. Everybody knows that line, God is good. Well, there's a company down in the States that's using laser cutting, and they made this sign saying God sideways, G-O-D, and I'll do it your way, G-O-D, but then it went G-O-O-D, and then one of the O's, you put the letter of the word is. And I got that hanging up in the kitchen. We haven't figured out where to hang. We got two of them because I wanted one for here and one for there. And I've got them hanging on the doorknobs of the cupboards. And every time I walk into the cupboard and open it up to get some more chocolate, open the door up to get some more food, I see it and I read it and I realize that it's true. But one of the things that some people looked at differently about Jesus is because they didn't see the sign. And our scripture this morning is found in John chapter 12. That's actually in a lot of other places. But we're looking at the one in chapter 12, 12 to 16. And it goes, the next day, the great crowd that had come for the feast heard that Jesus was on his way to Jerusalem. Now the feast is Passover. Passover starts, I believe, next Friday. Anybody know for sure? I think it's next Friday. So we celebrate Easter when they celebrate Passover. And so this is what they're talking about. And they took palm branches and went out to meet him, shouting, Hosanna. And there's that word. We don't have a meaning for it, but we know what it's saying. It's saying that Jesus is the King. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the King of Israel. Jesus found a young donkey. Well, actually in John that's what he said, but in Matthew he sent the disciples to go get this donkey. Now in Matthew it mentions that he's a donkey and a colt of a donkey. It's the same thing. It's a double understanding. Parallelism they call it. And they say donkey, but a colt of a donkey, which means it was a young colt. Donkey colt. And he sat upon it. Actually, I'm going back. I'm having fun with this. We go back to Matthew, and he said the disciples helped him get up on the donkey. The donkey had never been ridden before. And I don't know if you know anything about riding horses, but try not to get on one that has never been ridden before, because it gets a little hairy at times. And so they sat Jesus on it, as it was written, and this is in Zechariah 9:9. Do not be afraid, O daughters of Zion. See, your king is coming, seated on a donkey's colt. Now there's a reason for that, which I mentioned to the kids. He's the Prince of Peace, and that's why he came on a donkey and not on a white stallion. At first, his disciples did not understand all of this, and only after Jesus was glorified did they realize these things had been written about him, and that they had done these things to him. That's the story. It's an amazing story, and there's a number of people in this whole story, and I want to go down those people. The first one, and if you want to write down, you got space on your book, you can write this down. The first one is Jesus himself, then there's the disciples, then there's the people, and then there's the church leaders. Now, we are one of those. We're not Jesus, though. But sometimes people think they are, because they think they have to have a God in their life, and they become their own God. They really do. Some people, their God is something else. It's money or cars or prestige or all kinds of stuff. But Jesus is the only king, and I wrote this down. He put things in place. Told the disciples, go into town, you're going to find a donkey there, untie the donkey, and if anybody says anything, tell him to say the Lord needs it. So they went off, and sure enough, there's the donkeys just standing there, tied to a post. And so they walk over, they untie him, they start walking away, and this guy comes out. I don't know about you, but if somebody went to take my car, I think I would come out of the house too pretty quick. Wouldn't you? Oh, the Lord needs him. And the guy says, okay, go ahead. Just like that. Just like that. He put things in place. You know, he was the reason for all of this. Because in the Old Testament, there are 263 different prophecies about Jesus. And all that revolves around his presence coming. It's all there. And he met most of them. Okay, now why didn't he do all of them? Because the other ones are yet to come. They all prophesy about Jesus. They all tell about him. They all say, this is... And it's true. They're all there. But Jesus was the center of attention. He came to, and the scripture told us, he came to town and everybody heard that it was coming. They heard it was coming. Now, there were a number of groups of people that were there in Jerusalem at the time because Passover was like a pilgrimage. You want to go to Jerusalem once in your life. And I've had people ask me, have you ever been there? And I said, no. Would you like to go? No. Why not? Because I like being here. You know, if I was there, you'd be sitting here listening to Ruth play a whole pile of songs. And then James would say the benediction and everybody would go home. So I'm here. And I'm having a good time. But they knew that Jesus was coming, and they started to recognize him. Because he was the center of attention. Now, have you ever been to a parade? You ever been to a parade? You been to a parade?
The Santa parade. 2 years.
Yeah. DJ?
Yeah.
You been there too?
Yeah.
Good. You see, with a Santa Claus parade or any of the other parades, you get all this stuff ahead of time, and usually there's a fire truck at the front, right? Waking people up because everybody's falling asleep, right? No, they're not falling asleep. They're excited about what's going to happen. And so all that, and then the second thing that comes down are these girls that throw those things up in the air and catch them. Really? And then there's the next group that comes in that's usually a band. And I used to be in charge of, one of the girls in charge of Air Cadet Band. And I used to teach the new kids who came in who couldn't pick up an instrument and know how to hold it right. And I taught them how to play it. And they would play. And then there would be a bunch of dancing girls and then gymnastic people and just going on. Because you're waiting for the end for the last thing. Everybody's waiting for the last thing. Did you know it's when Jesus came, he was the first thing because he was the most important. He didn't wait to the end. He came first. And I don't know about you, but if he's the center of attraction, that's who I want to see. Because there's something else about following Jesus. It's following Jesus. And here's the disciples, okay? The disciples are the next one. By the way, when they shouted Hosanna, they were worshiping him. And that's when the church people got a little upset. But the disciples. You see, a disciple is a person who's called. You know, he went up to Matthew and he said, come on away from the text booth. I want you to follow me. He said to Peter and Andrew and James and John, he said, come, I will make you. There's a man, we sang about that last Sunday with the kids. So the disciples were not only called, they were sent. Remember that? They went out 2 by 2. He taught them, he was teaching them, and they got to the point where he says, okay, now it's time. And they go, what time? Well, they didn't look at their wrist because they didn't have watches back then. Maybe I could loan them a couple of mine. But here they are, they're called, they're trained. And then they're sent out, and they go out and they said, okay, now go. Tell the world about me. Tell them that the King has come. You know that song, The King is Coming? The King is Coming? Great song. But not only were they called and sent, there was also an inner circle. And I don't know about you, but sometimes it's nice to be part of an inner circle. Because then you get the stuff firsthand. And we had the 12 disciples. He picked them all. And he picked them all for a reason. Did you know that every disciple is picked by God for a reason? So if you've been picked, you've been called, then you've been sent to do what he called you to do. So when you get to that point, part of the inner circle, the parade's going, Jesus is first, not last, and you're following on behind, and you're following along behind with your fingers in your suspenders going, I'm with him. I'm with the most important person in the parade, and I'm with him. Remember how they argued? After Jesus told them, I'm going to die, and I'm not going to have any more of this meal again until we do it in heaven? They started arguing, well, which one of us is first? Really? Which one is it? Am I first? John, you can't be first. Matthew, no way, no way. You still got too much money in your pocket. It's weighing you down. Do you know that more people have died on cruise ships that have gone down, not cruise ships, on older ships, because they tried to take their possessions with them and were weighed down and couldn't swim with the weight on them. Are we one of those? Are we one of those disciples? Because the last thing is, the disciples seem to bask in the glow of Jesus. Are you one of them? You see, if you're one of them, the joy of Jesus shines in your face. I'm not saying we smile all the time. I have a hard time smiling. I look at pictures of myself from when I was younger. Maybe you've done the same and you discover that you don't smile a lot. You know? I don't think my mouth was ever made for smiling. You know? My daughter, they used to try to tickle me to get me to laugh. Well, I'm not a ticklish person. But my youngest daughter knows when it'll work. And she'll come up to me and with no warning, and she will go, "What?" And I will go, and I'll start laughing and carrying on. She said, "Got you again, Dad, got you again." You know what? Jesus can do that. He can put a smile on our face and a joy in our heart that we can never get from anywhere else. Because we walk in the glow of Jesus. And I have used that analogy before. The sun, S-O-N, is also the sun, S-U-N, in our lives. You know, we can look outside and it looks pretty gloomy, but you know, above those clouds, above the clouds in our life, there's sunshine. And I believe that that's the same in our life. When we get these problems and difficulties, all of a sudden we realize that there's still a Son in our life. There's still Jesus, and they were walking in the glow of Jesus. Are you walking in His glow? You see, we can't be Jesus, but we can be a disciple. But the third group are people. Just everyday people, and they're hearing this noise. What's going on? They heard that Jesus was coming, but they didn't think it was this big of a deal. You know what? Some people don't think it's a big deal. Some people just think, just another parade. You know? You get to be in so many parades, like I was with the cadets, and even way back when I was in Cubs and Scouts. Hamilton had the largest Boy Scout Guide Brownie parade in the Commonwealth at one time, and I was part of that. There were 10,000 kids in that parade. But there were a lot of people standing on the sidelines watching. You know, in life today, there's a lot of people standing on the sidelines watching. To them, it's no big deal. Oh yeah, here comes Jesus. I don't know. I got my own God. Actually, I'm my own God. And what's the big deal? What's the big deal about all of this? What's so important about this one fellow? The people, they had heard about Jesus. And they heard the talk about Jesus. And they just stood there and watched. I don't know about you, but I'm not a person to stand and watch. We had 22 people here yesterday that didn't stand and watch. You see, we think of this place as an important place where people can come in, and if they haven't met Jesus, they'll find out who He is. Because we're going to tell them. I remember when I was taking a course in preaching. At that time, sermons were different than they are today. And Michael tried to get this into my head, but I could never get a hold of this. And he said, when you preach, you tell them what you're going to tell them, then you tell them, and then you tell them what you told them. You got that? You tell them what you're going to tell them, then you tell them, and then you tell them what you told them. You know what you're doing? You're repeating it 3 times. You know what we found out over time? You only hear the last thing that's said, unless you write it down in your bulletin. That's why that space is there. And the people that were on the sidelines heard about them, but didn't do anything about it. They saw the parade go by. They saw people throwing down their cloaks and putting down palm branches, and they just walked on by. Just walked on by. After the parade it wasn't a long parade. You got to remember, there's Jesus. Then there's the 12 disciples. Then there's the other disciples, because there's 2 different types of disciples. Did you know that? There's 2 different types of disciples. There's the called for taking His message to the world. Then there's called, just like we are. And then there's the ones who stand on the side. I never wanted to stand on the side ever. I always wanted to be part of it. And I think we all have that burning desire in our lives and in our hearts to be part of something. And that's why we come here. We come here for 2 reasons. We come here because we want to be part of something, and we come here because we need help. We're not perfect. We're not like Jesus. We're not even close to it. You ever pray, Lord, I want to get better today, help me. Or you get to the end of the day and you say, you know what? That was a terrible day. I didn't do anything. I didn't even remember to think about you all day. I don't know if He asked for that. But the one thing I know is, I want to get better. And not in the way that we hear prosperity preachers who say we're getting better and better every day in every way. We're not. You just talk to the people at McCastle Lodge who have followed the Lord for years, and I used to sit and talk with them all the time, and I'd ask them, I said, how are you doing here? My faith is strong, and I'm trying to get better at my faith every day. And that's what we do. But then we have the last group. I always make fun of these guys. By the way, they're all guys. What's with that? Church leaders. The church leaders were so focused on themselves, they had a problem. And the first problem was this. They thought Jesus was making them look bad. I want you to go to Matthew, the first, chapter 5 and 6 and that, and just listen to the words of Jesus, especially with the Beatitudes. The Beatitudes, he mentions a whole bunch of stuff. Blessed are the pure in heart. They will see God. I want you to think about that as if your name is on that. Because if we do that, then we will recognize beyond anything we could ever understand what it is to be a follower of Jesus. And I want you to read those two chapters, 5 and 6. And I want you to read it with a smile on your face. And I know I can't smile, but a smile on your face, because so many of those things, he's just saying them. And the Pharisees and Sadducees aren't even listening, because they're too taken up in, he's taking my thunder. Because they said on Sunday, or Saturday, on Saturday, you can't go more than a mile. And if you go more than a mile, you're working. And you can't rake your leaves in the summer on a Sunday, because that's work. I had a church fire me for raking the leaves on a Sunday afternoon when I was bored. Here's another thing. The church leaders thought Jesus was raining on their parade. They had ownership. They had ownership. Every time I go into a church, whether it's to go in there to work or to take a look at the place, I always ask myself, Deborah and I sit in the car, and we have a word of prayer. I say, Lord, show us if you're still in the building. Show me if you're still in the building. And if you're not, we'll keep going. 6 years, 1.5 months ago, I came here, and the board had called me, and I told them, don't tell anybody we're coming. And we came in here, and we sat down, and we went through the service. We had prayed before we came in. And Jesus said, I'm here. See, that's where we're going. We're not coming to say, here am I. But here you are. You're here. And we can feel you and experience you and know all the things that are pertinent for us, because we're not looking for people's adoration. We're looking to see if we can lead each other closer and closer to Jesus. I don't know. I wish I was at that Palm Sunday. Well, I couldn't be here and there at the same time. But it would have been amazing to be there, been right behind Jesus as the disciple, or even a little bit farther back and walking with him. And just, people are throwing the palm branches down in front of him, and we're walking along, and we're walking on the red carpet too. And I don't know about you, but I thought about this week. I want to pick up those branches and run ahead and throw them down farther ahead and then do it again and do it again. Because I want to do that for him. Because he's the most important thing in the building. Is he the most important thing in your life? If he's not, it's time to find him. And when you find him, your life will be changed. It will never be the same. And the reason it will never be the same is when Jesus comes into your heart, he changed the heart. Not who you are, but your heart. And that change can happen today, it can happen tomorrow, it can happen anytime. And for you that it's already happened to, are you renewing it every day? Are you thinking about getting in the parade every day? Because being a Christ follower is not a spectator sport. We're involved. We're here to meet the King. He calls us, and then he sends us. Let's pray. Father, thank you for your Son. Thank you that he is not only part of our life, but he is the most important part. For our life was not the best at the best of times, but it's the best even at the least of times because your Son is in our lives. I pray that we could not only see that parade going by us, but that we would step out of the crowd and become part of it. You call us all, not just to become followers of your Son, but to do something that will honor you. Teach us today. And as we leave here, may we discover what you're calling us to do. Because we're just starting. And we're ready for your Son, the King of Kings. And it's in his name we pray.